Welcome in, everyone. Pull up a chair, grab your coffee, or, if you're listening to this on your commute, just settle in.
Yeah, get comfortable. We are so glad you are joining us for today's deep dive.
Exactly. We like to think of you as the third person in the room with us, sitting right here at the table, ready to explore some genuinely fascinating ideas.
And today we have a very specific mission.
We do. We're looking at a stack of incredibly thought-provoking and honestly quite radical excerpts from a philosophical text. It's by an author named Xu Feng.
Titled Crises Faced by Humanity.
Right. Our goal today is to really dig into this author's unique perspective on the future of our species and to uncover what he argues is the true hidden root cause of all human suffering. Okay, let's unpack this.
Before we jump into the deep end, let's just lay down some quick ground rules for you, our listeners.
Always a good idea.
The source material we are exploring today contains some very strong, very uncompromising philosophical and spiritual views. It offers heavy critiques on modern society, on the scientific establishment, and on organized religion.
It pulls absolutely no punches.
It doesn't. So it is important to state right up front that neither of us here at the table is endorsing these viewpoints, nor are we taking sides or passing judgment on them. Our role today is strictly to be your impartial guides.
We are just the messengers.
Exactly. We are here to synthesize the text, connect the dots, and help you understand the author's fascinating arguments exactly as they are presented in the original material.
It is really all about exploring the ideas and seeing the world through a completely different lens for a little while. And I mean, this text definitely offers a massive paradigm shift.
It really does.
It starts off by acknowledging that humanity is facing a crisis, which isn't exactly a new idea for anyone paying attention to the news lately. The author notes that scientists, thinkers, spiritual figures, they've all been sounding the alarm for decades.
But then he gets specific.
Yeah, he lists out the current threats we are facing. And it is the most overwhelming apocalyptic laundry list you can possibly imagine.
It is intense.
We are talking about very grounded, real-world issues. Severe water shortages, food scarcity, rapid population growth, heavy atmospheric pollution. But it doesn't stop there.
No, it escalates.
It escalates into these massive, almost sci-fi sounding existential threats.
The scope of the threats he catalogs is incredibly vast. He mentions the rapid spread of potent global viruses, catastrophic nuclear leaks, massive land desertification, and the complete exhaustion of our planetary energy supplies.
Which is terrifying enough on its own.
Right, but then he brings in advanced technological anxieties. He talks about rampant nanobots running amok, artificial intelligence or robotics totally taking over human society, and even high-energy particle physics experiments literally swallowing the Earth.
Just casual Tuesday stuff.
Right, and then he layers on natural cosmic disasters, supervolcanoes erupting, global earthquakes triggering total economic collapse, asteroid strikes, and even supernova explosions in outer space.
Okay, hold on. I can completely track with how human greed and negligence lead to water shortages,
Yeah.
right? Or how corporate corner cutting causes a nuclear leak or runaway AI.
Sure.
But an asteroid strike, a supernova explosion millions of light years away, how does the author possibly blame a literal rock hurtling through space on human spiritual emptiness? I mean, isn't that a massive leap in logic?
What's fascinating here is how the author's underlying philosophy answers that exact skepticism. It sounds like a massive leap if you are looking at the universe through a strictly materialist scientific lens.
Where an asteroid is just a random rock.
Exactly. And humanity is just a random species on a random rock. But Xu Feng's framework views the entire cosmos as a deeply interconnected living organism.
Interesting.
In this view, human consciousness and spiritual energy are not separate from physical reality. They are deeply entangled with the mechanics of the universe. So a massive disruption in human spiritual energy doesn't just cause local pollution, it creates a ripple effect of cosmic instability.
That is a wild concept.
But the most crucial part of his argument is that he entirely dismisses the idea that we should be focusing on fixing any of these individual disasters.
Wait, really?
Yeah. According to the text, every single item on that terrifying list, from the AI takeover to the rogue asteroid, is merely a surface crisis. They are just symptoms of a much deeper disease.
So treating climate change or building asteroid deflection systems is essentially like taking cough medicine when you have pneumonia.
That is a perfect way to put it.
You might feel a tiny bit better for an hour, but you are still dying.
Precisely. The core thesis is that humanity is fundamentally misdiagnosing its own illness. If we only focus our attention on trying to solve global warming or regulating AI without addressing the underlying disease, our efforts are completely pointless.
Because the root cause is still there.
Exactly. The text argues that the true core threat, the mother of all these physical and environmental problems, is a spiritual crisis. It is a profound crisis of the mind and the soul.
And until that specific root crisis is resolved, humanity is doomed.
The author states plainly that treating the symptoms will only allow the crises to intensify until human extinction and the destruction of the earth become inevitable.
It is a massive claim, basically saying that all of human suffering stems entirely from a spiritual void.
It is bold.
But the text gets incredibly specific about how this spiritual crisis actually operates mechanically within us. It introduces this bizarre but really intriguing concept about human biology and our senses.
The sixth sense.
Right. We all know the basic senses: sight, hearing, smell, taste, and touch. Xu says that humans actually possess a sixth sense, a spiritual sense, or spiritual awareness.
But there is a catch.
A huge catch. Here's the kicker. He claims that across the entire human race, this sixth sense is entirely broken. It is just completely offline for almost everyone.
And the consequences of that broken sense are profound. Because our spiritual awareness is malfunctioning, we are utterly incapable of perceiving higher realities. It is a form of collective species-wide blindness.
We're just wandering in the dark.
Exactly. The author lists out exactly what we are missing out on. Because we lack this spiritual sense, we cannot feel the presence of God or perceive the existence of Buddhas and immortals.
Which sounds like standard theological philosophy so far.
But then he blends this with highly theoretical physics. He argues we are completely oblivious to the existence of 36-dimensional space. We cannot sense antimatter, we are blind to negative universes, and we have a terribly hard time even accepting the concept of something he calls horizontal time.
Wait, I need to pause you there, because the text drops these massive concepts without much warning. 36-dimensional space, negative universes, horizontal time.
It is a lot to take in.
It reads like advanced quantum physics mixed with deep mysticism. Let's break those down. What exactly does horizontal time mean in this context? Because we're all familiar with time moving forward like a straight line from the past to the future.
It is a dense concept, but think of time the way we currently experience it as a train moving down a track. You are in one car, moving forward. That is vertical or linear time. You can only see out the window at the current landscape passing by.
Okay, I'm with you.
Horizontal time, in this philosophical framework, is like being in a helicopter hovering high above those train tracks. From that vantage point, you can see the departure station, the current location of the train, and the final destination all at once.
Oh, wow.
Time isn't a sequence of fleeting moments. It is a vast landscape where all moments exist simultaneously.
And the 36-dimensional space.
Similarly, we experience the world in 3 spatial dimensions: length, width, and depth. Xu suggests that reality is infinitely more complex, layered with 36 distinct dimensions of existence, and that our physical universe is mirrored and balanced by negative universes and antimatter realms.
So it is just a much, much bigger picture than we can see.
Exactly. These aren't just empty spaces either. They are populated by different forms of consciousness and life.
But because we can't literally see or feel these 36 dimensions or horizontal time with our 5 working physical senses, the author argues we just arrogantly pretend they don't exist. He calls this the 3D trap.
The 3D trap. Yes.
Because our spiritual sense is broken, our minds become entirely trapped within a strict 3-dimensional spatial reality. We convince ourselves that Earth is the only space where meaningful life exists, and we completely shut down any pathways to higher-level dimensions.
The author is highly critical of what this 3D mindset does to the human ego. Without spiritual perception, we become incredibly arrogant. The text claims this blindness leads directly to the rampant spread of what he calls scientific superstition and absolute atheism.
Scientific superstition. That is an interesting phrase.
Right, because we can only measure the physical material world. We label any theory, doctrine, or cosmic reality that we cannot currently comprehend in a lab as heresy. Or we just dismiss it as unscientific nonsense.
We think if we can't measure it, it isn't real.
Exactly. We fail to recognize the actual tangible power of human thought. We deny the existence of karma and universal cause and effect, and we completely reject the idea of reincarnation, fully believing that physical death is the absolute end of the line.
Here's where it gets really interesting. The text doesn't just leave this as some abstract cosmic physics problem. It takes this loss of the sixth sense and links it directly to the very real moral decay we see in society every single day.
It makes it very practical.
It really does. If you think about it, when you stop believing in karma, when you stop believing in reincarnation, and when you are absolutely convinced that death is the final period at the end of the sentence, your entire behavioral code is going to change dramatically.
That shift in behavior is the linchpin of his argument. He explains that without spiritual awareness, humans naturally adopt the law of the jungle into modern society.
Survival of the fittest.
Exactly. The whole concept of survival of the fittest, which makes perfect sense in the realm of biological animal evolution, becomes our default social and economic operating system.
It becomes how we do business.
Right. If this physical life is all there is, and there are absolutely no long-term, multidimensional spiritual consequences for your actions, then the only logical goal is to acquire wealth, hoard power, and elevate your status by any means necessary while you are still breathing.
It turns life into a brutal zero-sum game. You start treating everyone around you not as fellow souls, but as competitors, or worse, as potential enemies standing in the way of your resources.
Yeah. It is a dark way to live.
And the text goes into some highly specific, incredibly relatable examples of how this moral decay manifests in everyday life. It references a classic Taoist text called the Tractate of the Most Exalted on Action and Response.
Yes, the Tractate is an ancient foundational text in Taoism that essentially outlines the mechanics of cosmic retribution. It emphasizes that every single action, good or bad, triggers an inevitable response from the universe.
Action and response.
Right, and Xu uses it to highlight how deeply we have fallen from this understanding.
He points out how people today will casually, almost happily rejoice when someone else faces misfortune or ruin.
Schadenfreude.
Exactly. Or how people in academia or the corporate world will blatantly steal credit for other people's research and hard work just to secure a promotion. He talks about people actively deceiving the ignorant, slandering their peers to ruin their reputations, exploiting the vulnerable for cheap labor, and holding on to these deep, bitter resentments.
It is a really ugly, but frankly very accurate picture of a lot of human interaction today.
It really hits close to home.
And this selfish behavior extends directly to how we treat the planet itself. Shueveng observes that we ruthlessly pollute our own drinking rivers, tear down ancient forests, and strip mine resources without a second thought. We solely prioritize immediate short-term economic gains over long-term ecological survival.
We just take and take.
Right. And to help you truly visualize the severity of this broken relationship with the world, the author uses a very powerful, very striking analogy. He asks the reader to look at the natural world. If you carefully water and fertilize a plant, it will organically offer you fruit or flowers in return.
It gives back.
Exactly. If you feed a chicken, it will provide you with eggs. If you treat a dog well, it will fiercely protect your home. Nature is inherently built on a sustainable system of mutual return and gratitude.
But then he asks the crucial question, what about a human being who has no spiritual awareness? What do they give back to the ecosystem?
The author's answer is absolutely brutal.
It is. He says a spiritually empty human is like a black hole. They only consume. They take the water, the minerals, the land, and the energy, and they give absolutely nothing of spiritual, moral, or even physical value back to the universe.
Nothing at all.
In fact, he goes a step further and compares a person without spirituality to a biological virus that actively degrades, infects, and corrupts its surrounding host environment.
It is a devastating critique of human exceptionalism. The text explicitly states that a person operating with genuine spiritual awareness and a functional sixth sense would never dump toxic wastewater into the earth.
They just wouldn't do it.
They would never hunt wild animals to extinction just for luxury meat or blow up mountains for coal. They wouldn't let boundless greed and a lust for political power dictate their lives. And they certainly wouldn't manufacture biochemical weapons or spark racial and national hatred to manipulate people into killing each other.
It all comes back to that core disease.
The core argument is that our massive environmental and social crises, those apocalyptic surface symptoms we discussed earlier, are just macro reflections of this internal black hole-like selfishness.
To really drive this point home, the text offers what I think is its most vivid visual analogy. The author asks you to imagine floating up into the sky exactly 1,000 meters above the Earth and just looking down at the massive, sprawling cities of the world.
What do you see?
From that altitude, humanity doesn't look like an advanced, rational, highly evolved civilization. Xu says we look exactly like a chaotic swarm of ants on a hot pan.
Ants on a hot pan. We are just rushing around frantically radiating anxiety without any true overarching purpose or direction.
It is such a perfect way to describe modern life. Think about it. It's like when everyone scrambles to buy the newest smartphone the second it drops, or jumps on the latest cryptocurrency hype, or burns themselves out working 80 hours a week just to get a slightly better job title.
We are moving so fast.
We are moving incredibly fast. But if you were to stop one of these human ants and ask, what are you actually doing? Where are you ultimately trying to go?
Hmm.
Most of us wouldn't have an answer beyond just basic survival or status.
We just want to secure food, find a slightly bigger shelter, and outpace the ant next to us.
Exactly. The author concludes that the secular world, for all its dazzling technology and self-importance, is ultimately just a dressed-up animal kingdom.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the author doesn't just critique the secular materialist world. He also has some very sharp, very provocative observations about religion.
Yeah, he doesn't hold back there either.
Not at all. The text acknowledges that throughout history, a small portion of humanity has intuitively recognized that they are living in an animal kingdom. They feel that broken sixth sense itching, and they want to step out of the ant colony.
Where do they usually go? They enter the realm of religion.
Right. And Xu Feng actually gives religion a significant amount of credit here, stating that anyone with a genuine spiritual pursuit inherently possesses a higher inner direction than even the greatest kings, presidents, or secular leaders, because those leaders are essentially just blindly managing the logistics of the ant colony.
But, and this is a massive but, the author argues that modern intellect, ego, and rigid societal structures have completely corrupted that religious escape route.
The people inside religious circles have lost their sense of direction just as badly as the secular world.
The text compares modern religious believers to compulsive gamblers. Imagine someone who has gone to a casino and bet their entire life savings, decades of their youth, and all their intellectual energy on one specific game or one specific dogmatic system.
They are all in.
Deep down, as they gain more life experience and wisdom, they might start to realize that they are losing the bet, or that the rigid system they joined isn't actually bringing them any true spiritual liberation or joy.
But admitting you were wrong after investing your entire life into a belief system is incredibly difficult. It is almost impossible for the fragile human ego.
So what does the gambler do? They refuse to walk away from the table. They keep betting.
Yeah.
And more importantly, to soothe their own cognitive dissonance, they try to convince everyone around them to join the game and place the exact same bets.
They drag others down into their failing system just to validate their own life choices and maintain their psychological balance.
Right. And to illustrate this trap, the author uses a really fascinating fable. I enthusiastically want to share this one because it's so strange but so perfect. It is about a tailless fox out on the freezing ice.
The fox fable. Yes.
So a fox is wandering around in the winter and tragically gets its tail frozen to the ground, and it snaps completely off.
Oh, wow. Okay, so the fox is permanently disfigured.
Exactly. Now, this fox knows that having no tail is deeply embarrassing in the fox community. It knows the other foxes are going to laugh at it and ostracize it.
So what does it do?
To protect its ego and balance its own psychology, the fox proactively goes around to all the other foxes and tries to convince them that having no tail is actually the ultimate highly evolved standard of beauty.
It tries to persuade the whole pack to willingly cut off their own tails.
Yes, claiming that anyone who keeps their tail is just ignorant, impure, and unevolved. Xu Feng uses this to describe the modern religious zealot.
That is a brutal way to describe dogmatic zealotry.
So because the fox is embarrassed by its own loss and entrapment, it turns its trauma into a beauty standard just to drag everyone else down with it. It wants everyone else to be as trapped and mutilated as it is, just so it doesn't have to feel alone in its mistake.
This raises an important question, which the author poses directly to the reader. Why do we so easily fall for the fox's trick? Why do millions of people join these systems?
It is a great question.
The text points out a dangerous psychological flaw in human nature, which he calls the illusion of the masses. We are naturally wired by our evolution to assume that truth is a numbers game.
We look at a massive crowd and think, if millions of people are gathered in this one place or blindly following this one doctrine, it must be the absolute truth, right?
Exactly. How could that many people possibly be wrong?
We do the exact same thing with power, wealth, and prestige. If a religious or philosophical organization is massive, heavily funded, and politically powerful, we assume it must be the right path to happiness.
If famous intellectuals, celebrities, or highly educated people are praising a certain system, we happily surrender our critical thinking.
We just blindly follow along, assuming the smart people have...
Have figured all the hard cosmic truths out for us.
Exactly.
But the author warns that this is a complete trap. Buying into the illusion of the masses does not lead to spiritual awakening or fixing that broken sixth sense. Instead, the text argues that joining these massive dogmatic groups only serves to put heavy shackles on you.
You trade your own innate spiritual intuition for a set of rigid, tailless fox rules.
And once you are inside, locked into that massive organizational system, all you are left with is a deep sense of internal confusion, a demand for blind obedience, and this desperate, lingering expectation that something outside of yourself, a savior, a text, an organization, is eventually going to come and save you.
Which is such a heavy, profound place to land this discussion. We started this journey looking at an overwhelming, terrifying list of physical global catastrophes. Supervolcanoes, AI takeovers, environmental collapse.
The surface crises.
Right. And the author expertly peeled back the layers to argue that none of those are the real problem. He took us through mind-bending concepts like 36-dimensional space and horizontal time, only to bring us all back to a deeply personal warning about our own spiritual emptiness, our black hole tendencies, and the profound danger of just blindly following the crowd.
Whether that crowd is frantically chasing secular wealth or sitting in the rigid structures of organized religion.
So what does this all mean? We want to turn this directly over to you, listening right now. This text acts as a mirror, and it is asking you to look closely at your own daily routines, your motivations, and your own internal compass. Are you running around frantically, just following the cultural trends and scrambling for resources like one of the ants on a hot pan?
It is a tough question to answer, honestly.
It is. When you interact with the world, your community, and your environment, are you acting as a black hole that only consumes and takes? Or are you operating like the plant and the dog, giving something of genuine, life-affirming value back to the ecosystem around you?
And I want to leave you with one final, lingering thought to mull over today. Something that really builds on the author's intense critique of our modern structures.
Go for it.
The text leaves us with this haunting image of people trapped either in secular rat races or massive religious organizations, sitting around with this passive, expectant hope for a salvation or a peace that might never actually arrive. If both the frantic 80-hour workweek hustle of the secular world and the rigid, tailless fox conformity of modern religion are ultimately just different types of traps, if they are different types of traps, what does a truly liberated, spiritually aware life actually look like in the 21st century?
That is the real challenge.
Is it even possible to fix that broken sixth sense and step outside the ant colony without completely isolating yourself from the rest of humanity?
That is the big question to chew on today. Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive. It's always a privilege to unpack these wild, challenging ideas with you. Keep observing the world, keep questioning the systems around you, and we will catch you next time.